What if I told you there was once a family car so bold, so futuristic, that General Motors tried to make the world forget it ever existed? A car that looked more like a spaceship than a station wagon, long, low, and covered in chrome, with fins that stretched wide like wings ready to take flight. This wasn't just another suburban hauler. It was a rolling statement of American ambition. In 1959, when highways were booming, families were growing, and every driveway was becoming a symbol of success, Chevrolet built something extraordinary, a wagon that dared to dream beyond function. They called it the 1959 Chevrolet Kingswood. It was powerful enough to rival muscle cars, elegant enough to challenge luxury sedans, and so advanced in design that even Cadillac felt the pressure. But behind its dazzling exterior was a story few people know, one of bold ambition, divided opinions, and quiet disappearance. Because while the Kingswood was built to represent the American dream, it ended up becoming one of GM's most mysterious creations, a car born to stand out but destined to fade away. And today, we're digging into the forgotten story of how the 1959 Kingswood became the wagon that shined too bright for its time. 1. The dream that created the Kingswood. The late 1950s were a golden age for American design, an era when cars weren't just transportation, they were status symbols, fashion statements, and rolling pieces of art. Every major automaker wanted to build something bigger, bolder, and flashier than their rivals. And Chevrolet was no exception. By 1958, the race was on inside General Motors. Ford had its futuristic Fairlane wagons, Chrysler had the sleek Plymouth Sport Suburban, and Chevy needed something that screamed progress. The company's designers, led by Bill Mitchell and Harley Earl, envisioned a car that could carry an entire family, but also look as if it could take off into space. So, in 1959, Chevrolet introduced an all-new lineup that broke away from tradition. The cars were longer, wider, lower, and more dramatic than anything Americans had ever seen. The Kingswood was positioned near the top of Chevy's wagon hierarchy, blending luxury, practicality, and sheer presence. Built on the new X-frame chassis, the Kingswood wasn't just a gross regatta. It was engineered for smooth cruising and power, powered by Chevy's potent turbofire V8s, the same engines that roared beneath Bel Airs and Impalas. But what truly made it unforgettable was its look. The Kingswood's design was unlike anything else on the road. The massive batwing fins, the wraparound glass, and that bold front grille gave it a stance that demanded attention. It was the embodiment of 1950s optimism. A car that reflected the booming economy, the atomic age, and America's obsession with the future. But that ambition came with a cost. Because while the Kingswood turned heads, it also divided opinions. Some saw it as revolutionary. Others thought it went too far, too big, too flashy, too much. And that mixed reaction would set the stage for its quiet downfall. 2. The design that shocked America. When the 1959 Kingswood first rolled onto dealership floors, it was impossible to ignore. It looked more like a concept car than something built for family road trips. The tail fins stretched so wide they almost formed wings, while the rear window curved inward, a radical cat's eye look that made it instantly recognizable from a distance. Chevrolet called it space-age design, but critics had another word for it: excess. Many traditional buyers, especially older families, thought the Kingswood looked too wild, almost cartoonish. It was as if Chevy's designers had taken the jet age too literally. But that was exactly the point. This was 1959, the same year America was racing to the moon, when rocket-inspired styling was all the rage. The Kingswood wasn't meant to blend in. It was meant to show that Chevrolet could lead the future. Every curve, every fin, every inch of chrome was designed to make a statement. Step inside, and the interior told a similar story. The dashboard was sleek and futuristic, the steering wheel thin and sculpted like an aircraft yoke. Bright metal trim ran across every surface, and the wide bench seats offered comfort that rivaled full-size luxury sedans. The Kingswood didn't just move families, it made them feel powerful, important, and modern. It also carried a unique engineering touch, the new Vista roofline with wraparound glass that made the cabin feel airy and spacious. 4 kids sitting in the back seat, every road trip felt like a view from the cockpit of a spaceship. Yet while the Kingswood was praised for its beauty, it was also mocked for its proportions. Automotive journalists of the time said it looked too long, too low, and too wide to park. Even inside GM, some executives quietly worried that the design was too risky. Still, Chevy stood by its vision, a bold, futuristic statement that would define the brand's image going into the 1960s. And for a brief moment, it worked. The Kingswood became a symbol of mid-century American optimism. But as the next decade arrived, that same daring style would suddenly feel like a relic. 3. Power and performance beneath the chrome. Beneath its striking looks, the 1959 Kingswood wasn't just a design experiment, it was a powerhouse hiding under all that chrome and flair. Chevrolet wanted the Kingswood to be more than just a stylish wagon. They wanted it to perform like a true American car of the era, confident, powerful, and ready for anything. The base model came with a dependable 235 cubic inch inline-six, but most buyers went straight for the V8S, and for good reason. Chevy offered several versions of its now famous turbofire engines, ranging from the 283 to the mighty 348 cubic inch V8, which could push out up to 315 horsepower when paired with a 4-barrel carburetor. That was serious power for a family wagon. With the right setup, the Kingswood could outrun many sedans and even some sports cars of the time. And despite its size, the X-frame chassis and coil spring suspension gave it a surprisingly smooth ride, soaking up bumps and highway miles with ease. Transmission choices added to the car's versatility. You could stick with a 3-speed manual, opt for the smoother Powerglide automatic, or choose the new Turbo Glide, Chevy's ambitious, gearless automatic transmission that promised seamless acceleration, even if it sometimes proved unreliable in the long run. Out on the open road, the Kingswood was a cruiser's dream. It glided effortlessly down newly built interstates, the V8 humming softly beneath the hood, while families inside enjoyed a level of comfort that few wagons could match. This was the kind of car that turned a Sunday drive into an event, a symbol of middle-class success and mechanical pride. But all that power came with one big drawback: fuel consumption. As the Kingswood's size and weight pushed the limits of practicality, many families soon realized that filling up its massive tank wasn't cheap. And with America slowly shifting towards smaller, more efficient cars in the early 1960s, the Kingswood's brute strength began to look a little excessive. Still, for those who owned one, the Kingswood was unforgettable. A wagon that didn't just take you places, it announced your arrival. 4. The wagon that outshined its own family. It's rare for a station wagon to steal the spotlight from its flashier siblings, but that's exactly what the 1959 Kingswood did. While Chevrolet's lineup that year included showstoppers like the Impala and the Bel Air, the Kingswood managed to command attention in its own quiet, commanding way. It wasn't just another family hauler. It was a statement piece, bold, beautiful, and unapologetically over the top. In fact, many dealers reported that buyers walked in looking for an Impala and drove out with a Kingswood instead. Why? Because the Kingswood offered nearly all of the Impala's luxury and performance, but with the added practicality of a wagon. It had the same sculpted body lines, chrome accents, and V8 options, yet it could haul an entire family and a week's worth of luggage without breaking a sweat. And let's not forget that wraparound rear window, a signature feature that gave the car an airy, panoramic feel. It wasn't just design flair. It made the cabin brighter and more inviting, perfect for families who wanted comfort and style rolled into one. The Kingswood even shared interior details with higher-end Chevrolets, plush upholstery, polished trim, and a dash that looked like it belonged in a luxury coupe. But the Kingswood's charm wasn't just about looks or comfort. It represented something deeper, a shift in American culture. By 1959, the idea of the family car was evolving. The wagon was no longer just a utilitarian box for suburban chores, it was a status symbol. Families wanted something that looked good in the driveway, something neighbors would admire. The Kingswood fit that image perfectly. It blurred the line between family practicality and luxury aspiration, and in doing so, it quietly became one of Chevrolet's most underrated icons. Even within Chevy's own lineup, it stood apart, proving that style and substance didn't have to be mutually exclusive. But behind all the glamour and chrome, there was a story brewing. One that would soon challenge the Kingswood's reign and reshape Chevrolet's direction in the years to come. 5. The sudden fall of a family icon. For all its success and style, the 1959 Kingswood's reign was surprisingly short-lived. Just when it seemed Chevrolet had created the perfect blend of power, luxury, and family practicality, everything changed, fast. The reason? America itself was changing. By 1960, the mood of the nation had shifted. The bold, excessive styling of the late 50s was falling out of favor. The country was moving toward cleaner, sleeker designs, smaller fins, lighter bodies, and more efficiency. The flamboyant lines that once made the Kingswood a symbol of progress were suddenly seen as dated. Chevrolet, sensing the cultural shift, redesigned its entire lineup for 1960, and the Kingswood name quietly disappeared just 1 year after its debut. It was a shocking move. The car had been a hit in its own right, but GM's relentless pace of yearly redesigns meant no model was safe, not even the stars. Some insiders claimed that Chevy's leadership viewed the Kingswood as too bold for the new decade. Others suggested it had become too expensive to justify keeping in the lineup. Either way, the wagon that once turned heads across America vanished almost overnight. The truth is, the 1959 Kingswood was a victim of its own ambition. It was built for a world that changed faster than expected. The same extravagance that made it unforgettable in 1959 made it feel out of touch by 1960. Families still wanted wagons, but they wanted them to look more modest, more sensible. Still, for those who owned a Kingswood, it wasn't just another car, it was a symbol of optimism, a reminder of an era when automakers dared to go big in every possible way. When fins reached for the sky, chrome glistened like jewelry, and power was a point of pride. But while the Kingswood's first chapter ended quickly, its story wasn't over just yet. Because years later, the name would return. And when it did, it carried with it the echoes of 1959's daring experiment. 6. The return of the Kingswood legacy. A decade after its dramatic disappearance, the Kingswood name resurfaced. But this time, the world around it looked completely different. The year was 1969, and Chevrolet was in the middle of a new battle, the muscle car era. America's automotive landscape had traded chrome extravagance for brute power and aggressive styling. And once again, Chevy decided to bring back the Kingswood name, hoping it would resonate with families craving both practicality and presence. But the new Kingswood wasn't the same kind of showstopper that had stunned America in 1959. Gone were the wild fins, the jet-age lines, and the flashy interior. Instead, the resurrected Kingswood of the late 60s and early 70s reflected a more restrained kind of beauty, boxier, simpler, and more focused on utility. Still, it carried a quiet strength. Under the hood, buyers could still get serious muscle. The 427 and even the legendary 454 cubic inch V8s were available, giving this family wagon performance numbers that could rival sports cars of the day. It was almost poetic, the Kingswood name reborn in a new age of power. But as the 1970s rolled in, fuel crises and emission regulations began to strangle performance. The Kingswood, like many large wagons, started to lose its appeal. Once again, it became a victim of changing times. By 1972, Chevrolet phased it out for good. Yet even as the name vanished from dealership floors, its spirit never really died. Enthusiasts and collectors would later look back at both generations of the Kingswood, the flamboyant 1959 original and the muscular late 60s revival, as snapshots of two distinct American dreams. One represented the optimism and style of the post-war boom, and the other, the raw power and freedom of the muscle car era. The Kingswood wasn't just a car. It was a time capsule, a reflection of how America saw itself in two very different decades. Bold, confident, and never afraid to stand out, it carried the same heartbeat of ambition that defined Chevrolet's greatest years. But even with its brief life and quiet fade, the 1959 Kingswood left behind something few cars ever do: an identity. One that still sparks curiosity today, with collectors scouring barns, garages, and auctions to rescue the few survivors left on Earth. Because when you look at a 1959 Kingswood, you don't just see a wagon. You see a reminder of when America dreamed in chrome and steel, and when Chevrolet dared to build a family car that was anything but ordinary. 7. Legacy and collector revival. Today, the 1959 Chevrolet Kingswood isn't just remembered, it's celebrated. Despite being produced for only a single year, with roughly 20,000 units made, the car has become one of the rarest and most sought-after Chevrolet wagons of the 1950s. Collectors prize every surviving example, especially those equipped with a 348 tri-power V8, which transformed a family wagon into a sleeper muscle car capable of surprising even sports cars of its era. Classic car shows are the perfect stage for the Kingswood's dramatic presence. Whenever one appears, crowds gather, not just to admire the car itself, but to step back into a time when Detroit built dreams out of metal and chrome. Its long, low silhouette, shimmering chrome, and yacht-like interior evoke nostalgia for an era of optimism, ambition, and fearless design. The modern custom scene has also embraced the Kingswood, transforming it into restomods and lowriders. Its spacious body and clean lines provide the ideal canvas for automotive creativity, blending classic styling with modern engineering. On Instagram and at vintage auto exhibitions, younger enthusiasts are rediscovering the Kingswood, praising its audacious design and timeless charm. Prices for restored originals reflect this newfound appreciation. A fully restored Kingswood can command upwards of $70,000, while custom builds with modern engines, air suspension, and chrome finishes sometimes exceed $100,000. Each car tells a story of innovation, ambition, and the fleeting nature of trends, proving that what time buries can always be rediscovered. More than just a collector's item, the Kingswood has become a symbol of mid-century American ambition. It reminds us that cars are more than transportation. They are statements of culture, style, and identity. And though it existed for just a brief moment, the 1959 Kingswood's spirit continues to inspire long after the last fin has gleamed in the sun. The 1959 Chevrolet Kingswood may have lived only a single year on dealership floors, but its impact on automotive history is anything but fleeting. It wasn't just a station wagon. It was a bold statement, a glimpse of the future, and a rolling testament to what happens when ambition meets design without compromise. Its batwing fins, luxurious interior, and hidden performance made it both a dream car and a family hauler, defying expectations at every turn. Though the Kingswood disappeared quickly from showrooms, its legacy has only grown with time. Collectors, customizers, and enthusiasts have resurrected its memory, turning it into one of the most coveted icons of the late 50s. What was once considered excessive is now celebrated as visionary, proof that boldness often outlasts fleeting trends. Every polished chrome reflection, every sweeping tail fin, every roar of its V8 engine tells the story of a car that dared to stand out, even if the world wasn't ready. And when you see a 1959 Kingswood gliding down the road today, it's more than just a relic. It's a message from an era when America believed in dreaming big and building cars that carried both style and soul. So, would you preserve the classic charm of a Kingswood, or reimagine it entirely for a new generation? The question remains as timeless as the car itself. If you enjoyed this dive into automotive history, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this journey with fellow enthusiasts who still believe in the beauty of classic cars. Every comment, every story you share keeps legends like the Kingswood alive.